the extreme is tremendous obesity where I'm not doing anything about it because I feel like such a failure. And then the other end of the extreme is competing at the CrossFit Games or being a bodybuilder or being, constantly having abs 12 months a year. We have to learn how to live in the middle. That's the only way we'll ever find success, not only with our body, but that's the only way we'll ever truly enjoy life. I mean, I'll never forget, I was training this lady years ago. At this time, when she and I were having this conversation, I knew her really well, but I'd never met her husband. And she said, I said, what is he like? I've never had a chance to meet him. And she goes, oh, he's athletic. He played soccer growing up and stuff. She goes, but he's got and this lady was incredibly fit, by the way. She goes, but he's got a little bit of a belly on him. And she stopped for a minute and she goes, he looks like the kind of guy that just really likes to enjoy life. And I was like,
what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nick Carrier's Best You podcast. I am super fired up today to have the one and only Corey Little join me today. I just want to start by saying, Corey, thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man. Like I told you before, I'm super stoked to have this interview, and I've been looking forward to it for a while. I'm looking forward to it all day because it's not every podcast interview where I've been able to have a relationship with the person that I interview for a while before I actually interview them. And so I know this is just going to be an awesome conversation because it took 25 minutes for us to be able to press record because we were talking about skiing and all that kind of good stuff. But anyways, I already would have introduced you with the intro. So you did your first bodybuilding competition when you were 17 years old. We're going to go right to there. Why?
Maybe because I wasn't good at anything else. Like we talked earlier about, I was okay at basketball. I was okay at track and field. No. So, yeah, man, like a lot of people, especially back in the 90s, if you played any high school sport, you instantly got thrown into like weight training, as one of your exploratories or one of your classes or whatever. And so my body just started responding really well to weights. And, I fell in love with it, man. I fell in love with like everything about weightlifting. And back in like 1995, 1996, there was no Google, there was barely any internet, So I just started reading everything I could get my hands on. I would check out books from the library and read all these articles about how to gain muscle mass and how to get lean and, what it took to compete in a bodybuilding contest. And I was raised on like this little dirt road in a tiny town in Georgia. And there were no bodybuilding coaches. There was no Instagram. We didn't know anything about that. So I kind of had to just find my own way. So yeah, I was 17 years old. I was a senior. It was early in my senior year of high school. And I competed in my first contest. I won. I saw a small ad in a small classified ad in a bodybuilding magazine that said sponsorships offered to teenage bodybuilders. And I was like, oh man, what is this? So I sent some pictures in and next thing I know, I was sponsored by this like young, up and coming supplement company. And so they paid for my fees to enter contests and so forth. And man, I was off and running. Next thing I knew, I was, going into college to study nutrition science and just continue my career in bodybuilding. So it was fun, but it was a little unusual, I guess, for where I came from.
Yeah. So you did it for, a few years after that. What was the thing that kind of made you decide to stop doing it or get out of it? Was it just kind of like, takes a lot of time and effort and work or what was it?
Yeah. It's funny, man. Like we live in such a different world now than like then, than like, 1998, even 2000. Like it's so different because now, and this is one of the things we'll get into and talk about more, I'm sure, as we get deeper into this interview, but like, we live in a culture now where you see bodybuilders and fitness models and fitness competitors and CrossFit competitors. We see that all the time on Instagram or on Facebook. And, it's kind of become a normal part of the culture, especially the fitness culture. Well, back then it wasn't. It was almost like a little sideshow. It was almost like a little mini freak show. Like if there was very much an underground vibe to it. And so it really became a part of my identity back then. Like I said, I really believe whenever someone has a true passion or anything that we just love, you really can't explain why, right? I mean, think of something you love. And for anyone listening, think of something that just captivates you and that you absolutely love. it's hard to put into words why, but that was bodybuilding for me. It was like this beautiful blend of art and sport, because you're literally trying, it's not about how much weight you can lift. You're trying to, for lack of a better term, sculpt your body into this piece of art that's going to be judged by judges. That you're going to stand up in these tiny little trunks and they're going to say, oh, this is good, this is not. And then they're going to rank you, rank the competitors from 1 to 10 or however many people are there. So I competed. I was so blessed. I competed for about 10 years. I had a really great career. I won a junior Olympic gold medal. I got second place in a international world championship. I competed in 2 other national championships, finished in the top 3 of all those. Actually, I only finished out of the top 3 once in my entire career. So I was very blessed, very fortunate to have a great career. But one of the things that people don't quite realize now, but especially back then, bodybuilding is such an all-encompassing sport. Like, I would argue the only people that maybe train harder and have to pay more as much attention to their nutrition and everything 24/7 are like Olympic athletes. Yeah. It's just exhausting and you're never off, so to speak.
Right.
And so when I got, into my, kind of around 30 years old, I was getting married. I wanted to have a life. I didn't want to have to constantly track everything I ate and, demand such a high level from every single workout I did. So I retired. After about 10, 11 years of competing, and just like I said, kind of to have a more normal life. I didn't leave it all behind. I didn't leave working out and everything behind, but that was the primary driver.
Right. And so I kind of want to get to one of the things you said earlier in a minute, but when throughout this time, before you retired, was that like your job, or were you doing another job, like making money on the side, or was you just making a crap ton from sponsorships?
Yeah, no.
I didn't think so.
So let me be very clear. I was a natural bodybuilder, which means, of course, no performance enhancing drugs, no steroids, no growth hormone, anything like that. And so in that world, like even in the big time bodybuilding world, where it's guys who look like they're from another planet, it can be tough to make a living in that world off of sponsorships and so forth, but especially in the natural bodybuilding world, and especially back in like the early 2000s and late 90s, you couldn't make a living for crap. So, I mean, you knew you had to love the sport because you were pouring money into it and time into it, but you weren't really getting anything out of it other than just the pure enjoyment of it. So no. I graduated from the University of Georgia in 2000 with my degree in nutrition science. I also have another degree in allied health. And I came out and I was like, man, I was fired up and ready to help people change their lives and teach them all about nutrition. And it was like, wah, wah, wah. Like in 2000, everybody, okay, yeah, sure, I'll work out, help me break a sweat, but I don't mess with what I'm eating. Now, of course, there's, much more attention and focus on nutrition, and people are much more open and receptive to that. And it's pretty much 99% of what I do now is, stuff in the nutrition world. But back then people weren't into it. So I was also a certified trainer. So no, man, I worked full time as a trainer and built my business doing that from 2000, goodness, until, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, until I transitioned pretty much fully to nutrition.
Nice. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier had me have had a spark of a thought that I had never really ever thought of before. You know how like back then, fitness models and fitness trainers and nutrition experts, like it wasn't as sexy as it is today, right? There wasn't as many people talking about it and posting about it and writing about it and all this kind of stuff. And this is not like, I know you're not going to know like the definitive answer to this, but like how much do you feel like because of the culture change of social media and everybody sees you. Everybody sees pictures of you on Facebook. Everybody sees pictures of you on Instagram. Everybody can see you. How much do you feel like that has been one of the biggest reasons why there are so many people more who are health conscious rather than people who just became health conscious for the sake of being health conscious? Like, I feel like I had never thought about this before. I feel like a large part of people being health conscious is because they know they're going to be seen more often, and they don't want to be judged for being overweight or not looking how they, quote, should look. Not that anybody should look anyway, but
I think your question makes perfect sense, but in a slightly different way than what we're imagining. Because if we look at research, if we look at statistics from, say, around 2000 until 2021, the obesity and the rate of obesity and overweight just continues to climb. So what I think your question's still very valid, and I think it brings up a phenomenal point, and that is this: that it's not that it's impacted the majority of society and Americans, like, oh, I'm going to be seen all the time on Facebook. What I think it's done is to really impact like the extremes. It's basically, and this is one of the things I'm so passionate about. And you and I talked about this, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of you here with the questions.
No.
But like, that is my passion now in the fitness and the weight loss and the health industry, is that I believe, number one, that the diet and weight loss industry is broken. I think it's absolutely screwed up. Number one. Number two, I believe the whole fitness culture that we live in now, with everything we see on Instagram, and I look, guys, I'm part of it. Like, I was part of it. I did photo shoots for magazines. I've stood on stage with 3% body fat. Like, I get it. But that fitness culture that is now popularized and glamorized nonstop on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TV, everywhere we look, everywhere on the internet, it is royally screwing up people's chances of achieving just overall great health and maybe in some weight loss. Because essentially what it says is this. It says this, let's have some fun. It says this is one of my trophies from bodybuilding, right?
They took a picture of you and then they sculpted it.
I wish I looked quite this good at one point. Not quite. But it says this is success, or a female version of this. This is what fitness success looks like. And if you don't look like this, well, then you're a loser. You're a piece of crap and you fail, and go home and be sad about it, right? So like it develops this extreme all or nothing mindset where we either have to be totally on and we're pursuing this, because that's all we see, or the female equivalent of it. And then even if we make great progress, even if a client or a person goes, man, I've lost 12 pounds or, and I've lowered my cholesterol, man, I just feel so much better, but like, gosh, still have belly fat. Well, guess what? Congratulations, you're a human being. You're supposed to have some belly fat. But when we're inundated with these images from this extreme fitness culture, suddenly we think we're a failure and we're a loser. And then we flip from being all on, doing it all, getting all our workouts, doing all the stuff, tracking our macros or whatever with our food, to suddenly we go off. We go all off. It's all or nothing. It's on, off. And it is like poison for man, you and I, some people might say we're high achievers, right? You've got a Best You podcast. You're all about helping people achieve the best version of themselves. I competed at a national and international level in bodybuilding in this extreme sport. So people might say that we're high achievers, but maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. And it just so happens that we love fitness. That's not everyone. There are people out there who they love something incredibly different. There are people out there who their number one priority is their children or their job or their community or their church, but they still want and need to be healthy and fit. And the sad thing is the diet and weight loss industry is presenting them with these extremes of, you have to do it this way or you're going to be a failure. And it's not communicated that clearly, but that's the message that gets driven into our subconscious. You're either going to be, a fat loser, or you're going to be competing in the CrossFit games. And again, people aren't saying that intentionally, but it's what gets stuck in our subconscious. And I just think it creates really unhealthy mental habits. I think it creates really unhealthy, mental habits with our food, and a really unhealthy relationship with food and with exercise. And I could go on and on and on, but I'll shut up just in case you have another question.
No, I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this. And I think you're definitely spot on in regards to people seeing that as success. And if they're anything short of that, they're failing or they're not quite there yet. And I at some point, not yet, but I definitely want to get into your nutritional philosophy and some practical stuff that people can start to apply. But I think that, if the problem is the extreme thing and these people who we see they look amazing and they can do amazing things, the thing is that that's never going to go away. Those people are always going to be out there. And so, unfortunately, the brokenness of it isn't going to be solved by those people going away or by those people trying to just say, like, you don't have to look like me, you don't have to look like me, you don't have to look like me. It's not going to be solved by that. It's going to be solved by each individual, and this is my opinion, but each individual taking responsibility for how they consume the extreme. You know what I mean? Like, they have to not define success as that person. They have to realize that I define my own success, and I don't have to look like that way to be happy or to be fulfilled. And so how do you go about coaching your clients in regards to, no, this extreme is not, like, that's not your success. You define your own success, and how do you coach them to that, and what does their journey kind of like look like in defining their own success?
No, that's very well said, man. That's beautifully said. And kind of what you just said is like my mission right now in my life. It's exactly where I am. And because you're absolutely right. Those people aren't going anywhere. And here's the thing. I was one of those people. Like, I don't want them to go anywhere. Like, I want to be very, very clear. I am not belittling or berating anyone who's at an extreme level of fitness. That's beautiful and amazing. And I was there. I get it. Like, that's incredible what you do. And so what you said is absolutely right. It's 100% correct. The onus lies on people to figure out how to navigate that. And I call that learning to live in the middle because, the extreme is tremendous obesity where I'm not doing anything about it because I feel like such a failure. And then the other end of the extreme is, competing at the CrossFit Games or being a bodybuilder or being, constantly having abs 12 months a year. And so we have to learn how to live in the middle. That's the only way we'll ever find success, not only with our body, but that's the only way we'll ever truly enjoy life. I mean, I'll never forget, I was training this lady years ago, and she was a world-class flautist. I think that's the actual term. She played the flute, but she was, world-renowned with the flute. And her husband was a musician as well, and he played the French horn. And he was German. And now they lived here in the United States. And I hadn't, at this time, when she and I were having this conversation, I knew her really well, but I'd never met her husband. And she said, I said, what is he like? I've never had a chance to meet him. And she goes, oh, he's athletic. He played soccer growing up and stuff. She goes, but he's got and this lady was incredibly fit, by the way. She goes, but he's got a little bit of a belly on him. And she stopped for a minute and she goes, he looks like the kind of guy that just really likes to enjoy life. And I was like in that moment, you have those small moments in life where you're like, holy crap, my whole mindset just shifted. Like that's what that means. Like, that little bit of belly fat, that's nothing to be ashamed. I don't mean being, 75 pounds overweight, but like that little bit of belly fat means that you enjoy life. That means you enjoy that cinnamon roll every now and then in the morning, or that, pizza on Friday night with your family. And so that's one of the primary things. I'm deviating from your question. I apologize.
No, I like it.
That's one of the primary things. Like, I try to teach people how to live in the middle. And one of the huge things with that, secondary to like chasing these, fitness model type physiques that we see all over the place on social media, secondary to that, right on the heels of it, is a number on the scale. I was just talking to my friend earlier who stopped by and was visiting from out of town. He's like, man, I don't know why, but it's like, I just want to get to 175. And I was like, hold on, man, what does your brain tell you that 175 is going to bring? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. And I said, no, think about it. Like, really, what does 175 represent to you? And he goes, what I think it is? He said, I remember seeing an athlete on TV one time, and he was my height, and he weighed 175, and he looked great. Bingo,
Wow.
mystery solved. But like my point is he's losing his, to some degree, his enjoyment of life and his appreciation for all the success he's had, because he's so attached to this number that truly, when we peel back the layers, means absolutely nothing. And that's so many people. You've probably seen it, right, Nick? Like with people you coach.
Yeah.
We get a number stuck in our head, and that if it's not that physique we see on Instagram, if it's not that, then it's this number on the scales, and then the scales haunt us and they dominate our headspace. And it's like one of the central things I teach to people is the scales never tell the whole story, and they rarely tell the truth. Yeah. You know it as well as I do. You get a DEXA scan, you get some sort of a body fat test done, that tells the whole story. The scales don't tell the whole story. They never tell the whole story, and they rarely tell the truth. And so my whole process is helping people to focus much more on the process than on the end result. Like I always say, we hear you got to keep your eye on the prize. You got to stay focused on your goal. Well, those are things that are wonderful, but for people who are really struggling, battling body image issues, battling some, and I don't mean like a clinical, like need, they should see a therapist. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about everyday people who are battling with the scales, battling with an unhealthy relationship with food, constantly feel like they need to work out more because of what they ate yesterday, those sorts of things. When they're in that battleground mentally in their head, and they're fighting with what I call the bully in their brain, who just beats them up every time they mess up, the more they can pull away from that big goal they have, that number on the scales, the more they can pull away from that and just focus on the day-to-day. Number one, you and I both know they're going to be much more successful, but number two, they're going to have more peace of mind. And in my coaching group, we not only we'll weigh about maybe once a month just to kind of touch base with the scales. But other than that, I jokingly, I tell them, look, bury your scales in your backyard. Like get away from those scales, man. Like, I hope I don't hurt anyone's feelings, but man, we were not created to be Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
We were created to be life livers, like to live life and enjoy food. And so we maybe touch base with the scales about once a month, but like another metric that we talk about and we look at is what I call LG, which is life gained. Let's forget about how much weight you lose. Let's also talk about how much life you're gaining. And that comes in a myriad of ways, like, oh man, like, I ate my son came home from college and we went and got Mexican food, and I didn't have to say, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, I'm on a diet. Like, I ate the Mexican food and I enjoyed it, and I didn't go crazy. Yeah. And then I didn't beat myself up later. That's life gained, like, oh man, I've lost some weight. I'm not even sure how much, but I have so much more energy. Like, I actually feel like playing with my kids when I get home from work, and that's life gained. So anyways,
no, I love it. I love it. There's a lot in there that I loved and that I could unpack, but just kind of touch on a few things. I love the learning to live in the middle thing, because you obviously not everybody wants to be the extreme fitness side of things and health side of things, but also there's almost like a little bit of a movement now that's okay on the other side of the things, where it's like you're really fat, like, love your body anyway. And how to actually verbalize that is a little bit tough, but it's like, well, you're unhealthy. Like, you actually need to get healthier. So there's a little bit of like the negative thing that's almost like being promoted a little bit now too, when it's like, well, I'm not really sure about that. Like, live in the middle. I like that a lot. And then the really thing that I wanted to kind of touch on is like the scale is not everything, because you asked, like, the example that you had with your friend when he said, I want to be 175, and you're like, why? And then he came up kind of with his reason. In my goal setting process, I always start off with people, and they determine before they set their goal, like their actual tangible goal, they set what I've termed with my brand is their best you goal, BYG. And their best you goal is why they're doing what they're doing, and like how they want to be thinking about themselves differently, how they want to be looking at themselves differently, what do they want to be doing differently, and kind of what they want to avoid. And they write that down and kind of boil it down into a few sentences. And then we write down what's called a success indicator, which is what indicates to me that I'm successful with that. And sometimes for people, it's a number on a scale, but even if they do that and like they're not being as successful with the scale number, they still have this other few sentences written out where like, I am actually feeling this way. No, maybe the scale isn't exactly what I want to be, but like I'm feeling more confident. Like I am being a good role model for my kids. All these, I do have more energy, all these kind of different things that they write out as kind of like the conceptual, how they want to improve. So it makes them not so tied down to that number on the scale. And it's really powerful.
That's beautiful, man. That is so incredible, because what we do is similar. It's just done in a slightly different way. Like you allow them, okay, you can have that. It sounds like to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but like, okay, you can have that scale goal, but you almost like protect them from themselves to go, okay, wait a minute, we're going to have some secondary things here that you may not realize it, but these are going to be so important as we move through this process. That's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I do. There are, because like mine's a specific goal setting program with like a specific duration. So there is kind of a end thing that they kind of want to achieve by the end of the 10 weeks, which I actually had trouble with initiating, because it's like, I don't want people just to think they should only be doing these things for 10 weeks. And so like, that's just a constant communication that I have throughout the process. It's like, look, anyway, there's a lot of things I do in there that I'm like, you're not just doing this for 10 weeks, but just in the sake of like business and like running a challenge, like this is just kind of how it has to be sometimes. Let's see, where do I want to go next? What do you feel like is maybe some of the things that you've said or coached to some of your clients that gave them some of the like biggest light bulb moments in regards to helping them enjoy the journey and not be so focused on figuring out a destination? Like what allows them to do that at a higher level?
Man, that's a great question. I can tell you this, the thing that I most consistently hear from my clients and students and people who listen to my podcast or whatever, like one of the biggest breakthrough things for them is that in order to change your body, in order to change anything in your life, you must first change your brain. And it sounds so simple on the surface, but I think we miss just how much we miss that. Like we don't recognize how much we miss it, because we go, well, most people say, okay, I'm overweight or I'm out of shape. Man, I got to get myself together. Man, I got to get myself in order. And what's the first thing they do? They join a gym, or they hire a trainer, or they start a diet, or they buy a diet book or whatever. Yeah. Physical. You've done nothing. You've done nothing to address this right here, this big chunk of tissue between your ears. And that, as you know, I mean, you know it, brother, that drives everything in our life. Like the analogy that I like to use is, you can, if you get in your car, you can crank it up, you can slam on the gas or the brake, but if you have no steering wheel, who knows where you're going to end up? You can try, you can push harder and harder and harder on the gas. You'll go somewhere, but you're going to crash. You're always going to crash and burn. And then you're going to wonder like, man, what happened? Why did this happen? To me, the brain is the steering wheel. And one of the central things I teach, and this is another response to your question that I think is a huge light bulb moment for people. I like to say that we have a bully in our brain. It is, dude, I've been so blessed and so honored to coach people from literally all over the world, from all throughout the United States, from Canada, from Ireland, Australia, Taiwan. And it's amazing, the incredibly different cultures, incredibly different food. All of us have that little voice, that little freaking negative voice in our head that likes to berate us and belittle us and haunt us and remind us of every single time we failed, remind us of the fact that we'll never be successful and why are we trying so hard? And even if we make progress, even if we lose weight, we're just going to gain it right back. Negative. And That is what I call the bully in our brain. And I think it helps so much to personify that voice, to separate that voice from us, because otherwise it's just me talking like crap to myself. And I mean, that's good to know that too. But I think when we can personify that voice, and because nobody likes a freaking bully, and when we can think of it as like a bully on a playground, and I one of the things I tell my clients, you have to be the master of your mental playground. Like you have to be willing to stand up against the bully and stare down the bully. And we do that in a group setting. I always like to say, look, the bully always wants you one-on-one. The bully does not like staring down you and all your friends. That's not how a bully works. And so, the power of the groups, man. You function in groups yourself, So I would say the two biggest things. One is that to change your body, you must first change your brain. To change anything in your life, you must first change your brain. And then number two is that we all have a bully in our brain that, we have to, that's a huge part of addressing the mental part of any change.
Yeah, no doubt. The bully in the brain thing is super key because, one of the things that I communicate with my clients and say a decent amount is that we need to approach ourselves with curiosity rather than criticism, like rather than berate yourself and beat yourself up, like ask yourself like, okay, why did I not do this? Or why did I screw up? And that sort of thing to help come up with a solution. But then the other thing that is really important in regards to the bully in your brain and how it allows you to kind of take a step back and look at yourself from like a different point of view and you separate that person from your actual self is, like we hear the golden rule all the time of treat others like you would like to be treated. And I'm obviously not saying that's wrong. We're both God people, but like there's a book. I don't know if you know, I think you've maybe talked about him before, Dr. Jordan Peterson, but he has a book called 12 Rules for Life. And one of his rules is treat yourself as somebody that is worth being cared for or something like that. Because it's like, sometimes we treat ourselves 10 times worse than we would treat somebody we care for or somebody we love. So it's like, if you take a step back and look at yourself from an external standpoint, you're like, why am I doing this to myself? You know what I mean? Like, why am I killing myself?
I wouldn't say sometimes we treat ourselves worse. I would say 100% of the times we say junk to ourselves in our head that we would never say to somebody we don't like, much less somebody we love.
Yeah, right.
Like, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but at the heart of all of this, I just had a lady the other day in my group. She posted and she's like, I finally get it. She's like, I'm learning to love myself now. And my positive habits are coming from the fact that I love myself, not from the fact that I hate my body. Like, bingo, like that's the key, like it sounds so cliche, but at the root of all of this is self-love. If we can learn to love ourselves now, nothing but positive stuff flows from that. I always tell people like you can't hate yourself to results with your body. And even if you manage to navigate that and you just, man, you hate your stomach so much or your arms or your fat thighs or your hips or whatever, if you just are so disgusted you can't look at yourself in the mirror, good luck getting results with that mindset. But even if you hate yourself to results, you will resent what it took to get you there. If you don't learn to love yourself now, you will not love yourself then. Like it's so true, man. It's just at the heart of it. And I think it's as you said, look at yourself with curiosity instead of criticism, man, that's golden. That's so beautiful. That is so helpful. I coach the very similar thing, but in slightly different words. Like we have to be curious about why, and we can't do that until we step out of emotion, And so that's fantastic.
Yeah, no doubt. So I want to transition a little bit into kind of like practical stuff to give some people who are listening some kind of steps to take in regards to nutrition and that sort of thing. So there's obviously thousands of experts who say thousands of different things. There's keto, there's plant-based, there's carnivore, intermittent fasting, all these different trends and stuff that are happening. In a few minutes, just talk a little bit about kind of your nutritional philosophy, if you will, in regards to how you help coach people into changing their habits. I know you're anti-diet revolution. And obviously I'm anti-diet as well, but just talk a little bit about kind of like your nutritional philosophy, if you will.
So I'm confident that your listeners are really smart people, so they probably already know what I'm about to say. But like all those things you talked about, intermittent fasting, keto, paleo, blah, 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 whatever. Let's just keep talking. You know, I mean, we can name 20 different diets.
Yeah.
The reason those things exist. Okay. Let me back up. I'm not going to say the reason. Part of the reason those things exist is straight up marketing. Like that's like it's hard to, you know what my nutritional philosophy is? It's boring. That's what it is. And it's really hard. It is. And it's really hard to sell boring. Like what? I'm supposed to drink water and eat my veggies? What? Like I learned that in elementary school. Yeah. You know why you learned it in elementary school? Because for about 50 to 100 years, we've known what works in nutrition. And the reason that's not in a diet book is because it's not sexy or exciting or adventurous. It's like, oh, paleo. What?
It's not like different.
Right. There's nothing to differentiate it. Like I teach tried and true nutritional principles. I teach stuff like eating whole foods, you know, like it's like basic stuff. Literally, like one of the things I talk about is the gradual magic of vegetables. Vegetables are freaking magical if you'll just eat them consistently. It's the gradual magic of vegetables. They're amazing. Does that mean you need to be a vegetarian? No, not at all. Like, again, you mentioned, you made a phenomenal point earlier, and we just kind of blew past it when we talked about like the extreme fitness, and you were like, now there's even kind of a movement of like, oh, like I'm really overweight, but it's okay. I love myself. I love my body. And you're like, yeah, but you're not healthy. You know, I believe that in society in general, that whenever the pendulum swings really far in one direction, it's just a matter. You ever been to like an amusement park with that swinging ship, you know, and it like gets way up here and it's like, oh no. And then here it swings back. I think that's all society does. We just swing from one end of the spectrum to the other. And the magic is in the freaking middle. Like, you know, so whether it's like the extreme fitness or the, hey, I don't care, I'm 100 pounds overweight and I'm diabetic. Like I love my body. You should love your body and you should love yourself, but we should also strive towards health. That's the middle ground. And so when we talk about nutrition, so many of those programs are extremes. Intermittent fasting. Well, I'm going to starve myself. Well, that's kind of extreme, you know, like, and I'm not saying it has no benefits. Sure. Look at the science, look at the literature. There are some benefits, but here's my question. Here's my question always. People ask, what's the best diet? The best diet is the diet that you'll do for the rest of your life. And if you're not going to do some version of it for the rest of your life, then don't even freaking start it. You know, like there's no point. So whether it's keto or paleo or Whole30 or any of those things, like the answer lies in the middle, in my opinion. And research shows us that. Like, do you have to be vegetarian? No. Like there's some meat is good for you too. Does that mean you should eat tons of meat all the time like keto? No, it doesn't. And, you know, what about carbs? Are carbs evil? No, carbs aren't evil. So I don't mean to give like a vague answer, but like literally I teach really, really boring stuff. For most people, I'd say, you know, you're good with about, I don't call them meals. I call them feedings. I make everyone feel like livestock, like an animal. But like, you know, for usually around 4 feedings per day, people are good with that if they eat a nice balanced mix of nutrients. And we eat kind of some carbohydrate, some protein, some fat at every meal. And so I teach people food combining and, you know, to kind of spread it out throughout the day. But really what's the much bigger thing than what I teach nutritionally is how we implement it. And we really take a very gradual step-by-step process. I often say it's like an instruction, like, you know, if you buy, if you went to IKEA or some store and you bought like a coffee table and it comes in this box and you pull out and there's like an instruction manual that's 3 pages long with, you know, 27 steps. Well, you can try to just wing it, but if you just follow the instructions, it'll probably come together nicely. That's exactly my approach with nutrition. Man, we start with breakfast and what people drink, and it's that simple. And, you know, we start, if people are drinking a ton of soda or sweet tea or coffee drinks, you know, coffee milkshakes, as I like to call them, we start moving those out and bringing in water. And they always start freaking out. Wait a minute, but I'm having, you know, pizza for dinner. I don't care about dinner. Like the whole point is to minimize overwhelm. And if we can just, so we zone in on particular parts of the day. I'm happy to get more specific than that if you like, but going to swing it back to you, buddy.
No, that's great. And I'm very similar in regards to, one of the things that the term that I have coined for how I say the same thing is we need to make it workable for you. And essentially workable means that you're willing and able to do it based off of what you've been willing and able to do in the past. Because so many people, like the key example that I always give to people in regards to one of my past clients is he came to me saying, I want to lose 15 pounds. I'm going to start working out 5 times a week and I'm going to cut out all sweets. And I was like, awesome. How many sweets do you currently eat? He's like, well, I have 14 desserts a week. I have a dessert with lunch and with dinner every single day. And I was like, okay, so let's take a step back real quick. I don't know if going down to 0 desserts is going to be quite doable for you. You know, a lot of people will try to do that and be successful 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, and then they'll have 21 desserts in week 5. And so like the plan for him was to have 7 desserts a week for the first 4 weeks, and then 6 desserts, and then 5, and then you know, so on and so forth. And he crushed it. And has kind of like completely eliminated that terrible habit that he had. But no, I'm definitely the same way. And you know, quality is king. Eating whole foods is like you said, man. Everything is the extreme nowadays. Whether it's nutrition, whether it's politics, or any of these things, it's because it's what catches our attention. It's because our brain is still dug up from millions and millions of years ago, and it's going to get whatever catches our attention or is what's the word I'm looking for? Threatening to us. And if it's threatening to us, or it seems like it could be something that saves us, then we give our attention to it. And we don't give our attention to boring things when the answer lies in the damn middle, and the boring things are oftentimes going to be the things that get us where we want to be.
Amen. No, that's 1,000% true, man. And that guy crushed it because he's got a heck of a coach, and you let him right. And you, I mean, it's, you know, as a coach, like anytime you start hearing someone go every day, all, nothing, like, you know, never again, or, you know, it's like, whoa, time out. Hold on. Wait. Let's pump the brakes, you know? And so that's fantastic what you did with him. One of the things that I'll often try to encourage people with when it comes to desserts or sweets or whatever, you know, because I mean, what most people experience, they get to a point where they're disgusted with themselves. They're disgusted with, I can't believe I've let myself get here. You know, that's a thing that'll go through people's heads, or they walk past it and see themselves in the mirror or whatever. And so they're ready to just, you know, chop it and cut it all. And one of the things I try to encourage, like, wait, hold on. You may not need to cut it all. Like, if you can get the results you want and still eat dessert 3 or 4 times a week, why not? Like, yeah, I want you, like, man, Nick, you know this, like your listeners don't. My mother just died, you know, very unexpectedly, about literally, it was 1 month ago yesterday, 4 weeks ago. My mother passed away at 65, very unexpectedly. I assure you, my mother, once she was diagnosed with advanced cancer, she never sat there and went, man, if only I would have eaten less sweets. Like, you know, like, no, like, man, life's short. Like, we're meant to enjoy life and enjoy food. And so, yes, like, I believe in being healthy and responsible and taking care of ourselves as well. But I want people to get away with as much as they freaking can while achieving those goals, you know? And so that's just another reason that we don't need to swing too far to those extremes.
Yeah, no, I love it. You know, when you said how your title or how you wanted to be introduced, you're like a food loving, lose weight while getting away with as much as you can, body transformation expert. Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Well, I want to get down to the last couple questions here, Corey. You know, you talked about how your coaching philosophy is kind of is step oriented. And the reason why a lot of people can't do that on their own is because people are just too damn impatient in regards to kind of getting results. So if somebody was not smart enough to go to CoreyLittleCoaching.com and get coached by you, or to do my to do my program, or do my program, what is like the recommendation that you would give to the person listening who is like, I know I need to start changing something, but I don't know where to start?
Mm-hmm. So That's a great question. So number one, I would say like, so if so you're out there listening to this podcast or watching this video or whatever, and maybe you hate my guts. Maybe you've hated every bit of this. That's okay. That's okay. But I promise you the principles I'm teaching are true and they're backed by science. So like, you don't have to work with me. You don't have to work with Nick. I'd love for you to work with Nick, but you don't have to work with Nick. But like the vast majority of the time you need help. Like people need assistance. You need, of course, accountability. And you may think, oh, well, I'll get that from my friend, or I'll ask my sister, or I'll ask my husband or my wife. Like that rarely works, because either they love you and they want to be really nice and maybe they're too nice, or let's just face it, they're not an expert in what you want to get better at. So even if you hate me and you don't want to work with Nick, that's fine, but go find somebody you trust to work with. That would be number one. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's number one. But number two, and I'm going to give some really, really practical things here, but number two is, man, start like the big thing is awareness. Like and I hate, like, I'm sorry to refer to my mom again, like this, I'm not meaning that to be a buzzkill, but here's the fact. My mom got diagnosed with cancer and she died 13 days later. You know why? Because we didn't know she had cancer for so long. There was no awareness until you become aware of your patterns when it comes to your food habits, of your patterns when it comes to your weight loss attempts. Until you become aware of your mental patterns, you are powerless. Awareness is everything. Awareness is everything. So start, as Nick so beautifully said earlier, start with curiosity and begin to just, don't even worry about changing your brain, like I mentioned earlier, but just start practicing awareness to notice your patterns from a very non-judgmental, non-emotional place. Like if you're binging on ice cream, that's okay. Don't judge yourself, but just go, wait a minute, hold on. Why am I binging on this ice cream right now? Like what's called, do I feel emotional? Am I really happy? Am I really tired? Like, what is it? And just begin to notice. That's, I guess, if getting help and hiring someone is number one, then number two would be beginning to practice awareness so you can start to crack into your brain and figure out what's going on. That's number two. Number three, when we get to really practical rubber meets the road stuff, start smaller than you think you need to. Like if you think, oh man, like if we go back to your client earlier, if he was like, let's say he didn't say, okay, I'm going to cut out all my desserts. Let's just say he said, okay, I'm going to cut out half of my desserts. If that's his knee-jerk reaction, then I would back it up. I would say, let's not even cut out half of them. Let's just cut out a third of them, something like that. So again, literally straight from my coaching program, we just start with what people drink and their breakfast. That's it. So maybe that's a great starting point for some of you guys. If you drink a lot of calories, if you drink a lot of sweets, whether it's wine or beer or juice or, wait, Corey, I thought juice was good for me. No, not if you're overweight and you want to lose weight. Juice is not what we're looking for. So wine or beer or juice or coffee drinks or sweet tea or soda, whatever. Maybe that's the biggest first step, is just to start reducing those, cut those in half and start drinking more water. Super simple, super, super powerful. And then maybe just change your breakfast. If you always have a Pop-Tart, maybe you start having, some lean protein. It could be a protein shake. It could be some eggs or egg whites or, or some Greek yogurt or whatever. Maybe you have that with some oats or, a piece of sprouted grain bread or something. It doesn't have to be complicated, but just very, very small. Do less than you think you can. And that will set you up to build momentum and build some success moving forward.
Yeah, I love it. And then to get practical one more time before the last question, what are like 3 foods that you try to make sure you eat on a weekly basis?
Dude, I could like almost one of the things I teach in my group is we call it go-to meals. Like people think like, oh, I need a ton of variety and I eat a million different things. No, like if you look at your breakfast, there's probably, and this is probably true for you, Nick, there's probably 3 or 4 different breakfasts that you would normally eat. They're like your go-to breakfast. And then eventually you may get tired of one and you kind of roll it out and you maybe roll a new one in. But we all have like usually 2 or 3 go-to breakfast meals, 2 or 3 go-to lunch, 2 or 3 go-to dinner. And I'm exactly the same. And so the things that I like, the things that I eat on a regular basis, man, I eat broccoli every week. Either it's steamed, it could be raw. Usually it's steamed. My veggies are like, I buy, again, man, this is all about practicality and sustainability. I buy frozen veggies in a bag, and when I need them, I zap them in the microwave. Zip, zap, done. It's so simple. But I eat broccoli every week. My wife and I, this is going to sound so boring, but it works for us. We boil about 6 to 8 chicken breasts every week, just plain Jane chicken breasts. And the reason we do that is because it's a blank canvas. So if we boil 8 chicken breasts on Sunday and we get to Wednesday and I'm like, what am I feeling today? Ooh, I want to put a little salsa on there and go Mexican. Ooh, I want to put a little curry on there and have a little Indian feel. It's a blank canvas. So I can adjust it as my palate prefers as I go throughout the week. So that's a great, very affordable, lean protein source, chicken breast. Some people may be disappointed. They're like, he hasn't mentioned like organic free range bison yet. That's great. That's great if you want to eat that. But I'm talking about practical and economical. So like for me, man, broccoli, chicken breast, and we used to eat a ton of spinach. But man, honestly, I think one of the most powerful superfoods in the world based off research is blueberries. Man, blueberries are just unbelievably good for you and unbelievably healthy for your brain. To the point like of almost like having medicinal levels of powerful and positive effect on your brain. The one other thing I might throw in is like when we look at the research base around different foods and different nutrients, omega-3 fatty acids that are found in fish oil. I know like people see it all over the place now and they're really like popularized and stuff. It's for a reason. They are incredibly, incredibly powerful. Matter of fact, I just saw a study come out that said, 3 factors that they found resulted in a less COVID infection and a lower hospitalization rate were omega-3, vitamin D, and multivitamin. And my exercise might have been in there as well. This was specifically for females. But again, I'm not saying if you take omega-3, you're not going to get COVID. I'm not saying all of that crap. I'm just saying omega-3s have a gigantic base of research and are so good for you in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, they're so important for your cellular health. And, that's why the talk around nutrition, when it gets super surface level around like macronutrients and stuff like that, it just frustrates me because, a lot of people, for example, if they say keto and then you see that, fruit is high in sugar. And so they think that's bad. And so they're not going to have it when it's like, it's not just, anyway, I don't want to go another hour with this episode, but I love it, man. I love it. Before I ask the last question, I just want to acknowledge you, Corey, because I love the way that you go about coaching people and doing things with your clients, because I think it's the way that it's going to be truly useful for people and allows them to make a lifestyle change and a long-term change, because like we talked about, so many things are just the extreme because they're easily marketed. And, I know you are too. We both like making money, and we're not, anti-capitalism or anything like that. But, you come from a place of really wanting to help people long term and do things that are realistic and do things that are sustainable. And that's just the right way to go about it. And everyone's not doing that. And so I want to acknowledge you for going about things the right way and beating up the bully in other people's brains.
That's very kind of you, brother. And right back at you, man. Like, you and I could put our brains together and we could develop something and make a ton more money, with snazzy marketing and pie in the sky promises. But you're not that, like I like to think we both have too much integrity for that. So right back at you, my man.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Well, you guys need to go check out Corey's coaching at CoreyLittleCoaching.com. Obviously, some awesome stuff I know you're interested to go learn more about. And you can follow him on Instagram at Corey Little Coach and Facebook at Corey Little Coaching as well. And I'll have all that stuff linked up in the show notes. But is there anywhere else people should go and learn more?
No, I mean, I'll throw out my podcast if that's okay. I don't.
Yeah.
All of you guys don't stop listening to Nick's podcast, because it's incredible, and he brings such incredible value to you all the time with everything he shares and all of his guests. But if you're looking for another podcast to fill your time, I have the Real Life Weight Loss podcast. If you've enjoyed what I've shared on here today, then you'll definitely love the Real Life Weight Loss Podcast. The episodes are about 15, 20 minutes, kind of little, hopefully powerful, practical pieces of advice. Very much the stuff we talked about, very much about the approach to weight loss and life change and kind of the bully in the brain and changing your brain and all that. So yeah, I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, man. Well, everybody on average listens to about 7 podcasts nowadays. So as long as they can integrate, I'm sure they can find this as one of their 7. So that's awesome. Well, last question today, Corey, is I think that getting closer to the best version of ourselves is a constant journey. I don't think we're ever at that best version, but I also think it's a unique journey. I think the way that I'm going to get closer to the best version of myself is going to be a little bit different than the way that you get closer to the best version of yourself. So for you personally, not for the people listening, but for you personally, if there are 3 things that you can currently do or currently work on to get closer to that best version of Corey Little that you could possibly be, then what are those 3 things that you could currently do or currently work on?
Man. Okay, I'm going to do my best to not sit here and think about this for 10 minutes. So, number 1 would be I'm going to think about this in like 3 different ways, maybe. So if I think of physically, number 1 would be to be as injury-free as possible. Like, you guys have probably noticed if you're watching the video from all of the white in my beard here, that I'm a bit older than Nick. I'm approaching my mid 40s, and it's not bad. Life's not bad as you get older. It's just different, and your body is different. And so I'm unfortunately reaping some of the punishment that I sowed from, all those years of hardcore bodybuilding and just really, intense heavy lifting. So my goal, one of the things I could do to be my best self, is to really not only take care of my health physically, which I like to think I do a great job of, but to really focus on not pushing too hard and keeping myself injury free. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think there's just Nick, maybe this is true for you, maybe not, brother, but I think when you love what you do and you're passionate about it, if you're not careful, you can get sucked into your work and into your business to the point that it maybe almost consumes too much of your life at times. And like I said earlier, I believe the magic's in the middle. We got to balance things out, and balance is such a boring word, but it's such a powerful word. So, man, I think if I could balance out more of my passion with my work and my mission that I'm out, to accomplish with my anti-diet revolution, I think if I could balance that more with time with, friends and family and just time to relax and dream and think and those sorts of things. So that would be the second thing. And man, the third thing, like you mentioned it earlier. You said we're both God people. Like for me, a massive part of my life is my faith, my relationship with God. And so, if I want to be my best self, then that means for me, pursuing my relationship with God in some way, whether that's, time reading scripture or time in prayer or just, meditating on what does my life look like? Does it look like something that, does it look like I'm a follower of Christ? So, for me personally, those would be the 3 things if I had to just throw them out off the cuff like I did.
Awesome. Well, those were 3 great things. Well, y'all go to CoreyLittleCoaching.com and check out the Real Life Weight Loss Podcast as well. But that's all we got today, Corey. I really appreciate it.